is a new thing, and that woman's voice is odd. Okay, not odd in case she's a fellow voiceover artist, by the way. Odd as in I'm not used to a voice being there. She's got a beautiful, sultry tone. Hello, everybody. We're going to do something a little bit differently on this call, and I wanted to give you guys a heads up. We're going to record the first 45 minutes of the call, and at 15 till, we're going to finish the recording. I'm going to turn it off, and then we're going to do some real life kind of improv exercises that Rebecca has for us. But we're purposefully not going to record that because I'm thinking knowing you're going to be on video for the next 70, 80 years might inhibit you a tiny bit. So that's what we're going to do.
Me.
Yeah. And Rebecca and me, who said we'll do a call on improv as long as I don't have to do any exercises. So yes, everyone has different feelings about improv, and we're here to figure out what it is, what we can get from it. But first, we're recording now, and we'll go, if you've got a question in the first 45 minutes, remember, chat amongst yourselves, but if it's a question, type in big caps question, so I'll see it. Otherwise, I'll assume you're talking about margaritas and your new puppy and stuff like that. So, Rebecca
Hi.
is a force to be reckoned with, guys. She's been a member of Joe since the beginning. She is in every group you could possibly think of. She's leading most of them. She teaches exercise classes online herself. She teaches improv. She teaches acting, and I'm intrigued by the worldwide performing and what you did. So I would love to hear, before we get going with all the improv stuff, I'd love to hear what made Rebecca. Like, we're 10-year-old wanted to be an act. I want to hear the beginning.
Okay. Yeah. I definitely, if you ask my parents, they'll tell you that anytime there was a stage or a picnic table and a family or a group of people, I was up there singing, or usually singing, because I didn't have any monologue skill. I wasn't doing Shakespeare at 4 years old. I still don't do Shakespeare.
Do you still sing?
I do karaoke now. We just had a karaoke. We had the first karaoke party yesterday, or for Father's Day, but we're like, hey, we're all vaccinated, let's do it now. So we had a karaoke party in my apartment, but and my singing has gone downhill over the last year, because I haven't been practicing my karaoke songs. What's that?
Did you ever train in singing?
Yeah, I actually got a degree from the University of Washington. I got a double degree in theater and in music with voice as my instrument. So I did opera, a lot of jazz, a lot of musical theater, and I just kind of trained with I trained with a former Mickey Mouse Club member for pop singing and musical theater, but that's just,
well, you can't get any more gold standard than Mickey Mouse. But well, how did you go? How did you travel? How did you end up all over the world? That's like my dream. How did you do it?
When I was in college, I think I remember, like, in high school, somebody mentioned that they wanted to work on a cruise ship one day, and I said, ooh, that's a good idea. So I kind of made that my goal. I used fitness as my way in, because I taught fitness and hip hop dance throughout college. And so, my senior year, I just applied everywhere, and I ended up working for a company that does the fitness on cruise ships. So I worked on a cruise ship, and that kind of gave me the money and the means and the experience to just, okay, I'm a person who will travel for work and will do entertainment, and I don't have to worry about paying rent and things like that. I mean, pay rent in some places.
I need more info here. So what do you mean? Were you teaching fitness classes on was it like Love Boat? Was it really like the Love Boat?
I don't know if I've ever seen a full episode of Love Boat. So,
oh my God, I'm really old.
Yeah, no, I should watch it sometime. No, it's exactly like Titanic. No, I'm just kidding. I was a fitness instructor. I only did one contract on the ships, but I worked for Disney on Disney Cruise Line. and I'd always wanted to work for Disney. And but I was not, because I was a vendor on the ship, I was not allowed to audition for like a year or 2 years for Disney Cruise Line. But there was no rule against working for Disney. So I did a little bit more traveling. I just did some backpacking and did busking with my ukulele that I taught myself how to play. But then I went to Walt Disney World and did parades for a long time, 4 years or so.
How did you do this? How did you have the confidence to do this at that age?
Well, at that age, you don't need confidence. Your brain hasn't developed fully yet. So, but it's mostly money. You know, I made a lot of money on the ships. The job that I had was sales, basically. You know, you're a fitness instructor and you sell things because that's how the ship makes money. And so, yeah, when you have money and you kind of know how much you need, you can stay in hostels and I always knew that I could go back to the ships if I needed to. So that is kind of what gave me the confidence. And then I eventually did go back to ships, but as an MC and as an entertainer. So I didn't have to do, not that I don't like doing fitness, but it's not really me. It's a thing that I like to do to keep in shape, but it's not my calling. So so I ended up, I've done a lot. I worked for Club Med. I was a dancer primarily back then. And I worked for resorts as a choreographer, and they shipped me around the world. And
that is so Love Boat.
I got to stay in each place for like six months at a time. And
you've got to watch the Love Boat, Rebecca.
I should watch it. Actually, my boyfriend did this. He worked on ships as well, also in the cruise division, the entertainment division, not on the same ship as me. We met online years later. So we should definitely watch some Love Boat sometime. And
definitely, you've got to watch it. That's like a basic education every human being needs.
Yeah. Well, I was a cruise director staff, and people would come up to me and they would go, "Are you Julie?" And I'm like, technically my boss is Julie. This ship is a lot bigger than the Love Boat. So he has the minions, or she has the minions that do all the stuff, and he just introduces the shows and the big events. So we did all the other smaller events.
So did you ever have any time in your life where you were like, didn't know where you were going? Or do you sound to me like you follow your passion. Did you ever stumble?
Yeah. When I kind of retired as a dancer 10 years ago, maybe. And I wanted to do improv, and I did. And I just moved to LA, and my parents were excited that I was moving to LA, where I didn't know anybody and I had no place to live, but I would be in the country. I would be in the same country, and I'd be able to call them on the cell phone. You know, we didn't have Zoom back then. So they were happy about that. And I think I auditioned for the Groundlings before I even found a place to live. But I didn't know what I wanted to do with it, because you can't get a job as an improv actor. You know, there are like 5 guys who, you've seen them on Whose Line Is It Anyway? And they're the ones making a living as an improv actor. And there are people that do it in theme parks as well. But I didn't want to live in Florida anymore or move to Branson, Missouri. I wanted to live somewhere less humid.
But why improv? Because I told you about people's reactions when I mentioned we were doing improv. People were a little bit, everyone's got like an image of improv, and this might be a good time to maybe set that straight. And as you were saying, some of that, I know mine comes from drama school in the beginning, and it was the bit I dreaded.
It's funny, when I was that's how I got introduced to it as well, but in like junior high school. We did a lot of improv games, and it was my favorite thing to do, was just to watch the funny, cute boys in the class and not participate. Because it was terrifying, especially with funny, cute boys in the class. So, but it's, it's something that's kind of pulled on me though. Like, I love it. I want to get close to it. I want to do something. And because I had a theater degree and we did a lot of improv, and I was too scared in college to audition for like the improv group. But there was another group that I was a part of that we developed we developed scenes that we would use to help teach classes, that the teachers would come to us and say, hey, we want to teach on this thing. Can you make a small play? And we would use improv to come up with the script. And so we did a lot of easy improv games for our rehearsals and things too. And that kind of got me more into it. And it was a lot less scary because the people were, they weren't, when you do it in an acting class, it's kind of like, okay, we're going to do a scene just like you would do a scene that's in your hands, but we're just going to make up the lines. It's like, what? Whereas if you go with some teachers who are experienced in improv, they're going to say, okay, we're going to play a name game. We're going to play a game where you come up with one word and then you think of another word. And, it's baby steps. It's really learning to walk before you try to run. So, it's a lot different. But it took me until I was, probably 26, which that's a long time ago now. But it took me a few years before I would actually take an improv class because I was scared of it for the same reason. But I was in Orlando at the time. I was working for Disney, and that's where Wayne Brady was from, and his theater that he was one of the founders of was in my city. So I went and I finally took classes, and it's completely changed my life. It got me into less focus on dancing and more into acting. And when you're a parade performer, it's like, oh, being able to speak, wow, that's exciting. But it gave me the confidence. It gave me the confidence to be an MC. Because we would have to introduce our scenes on stage. And then I ended up being an MC for many years on ships and elsewhere. So, yeah.
So can I float a question by you? Because I have this idea that my favorite line, I bring it up all the time, and I'm sure I'm misquoting it, is that an actor's job is to show up naked, like shred all the self-consciousness and all the things we've learned and put on over the years and show up as ourselves. That people try to learn to act and they're adding things, they're adding affectations, they're looking in the mirror, and people do that with narration, really do it with narration. Whereas they don't just reading. Stop. Yeah, and then that's when it starts sounding hollow. They don't stop and say, who am I talking to? Even when you're narrating, you're talking to someone. Check and listen. Who am I talking to? What am I seeing? What am I thinking? What am I feeling? But so the key is to shed all that extra stuff. And improv is the quickest way. It's like jumping in a pool of cold water, isn't it? Because you can't be self-conscious because you wouldn't be able to think fast enough. You'd freeze. But
it happens to the professional improvisers too, but
does it really? But see, that's what my question was going, because I thought it was a muscle, and that if you started shedding that self-conscious, because I had a director that used to stick me on. I was taking over a play and I wasn't off book because I only had 2 weeks to learn, and it was like the lead, and I had so many pages. He stuck me on and said, act the argument. And I didn't know the lines, and it was the horrible experience. It worked. God knows how. It was so stressful. But I would think that if you did that professionally, is it not a muscle they build and then they get rid of all shred of shame and self-consciousness, even in real life? Or is it?
I'll tell you, like, even right now, I'm like, my legs are under my table just going, because you definitely learn how to fake it. You learn how to get to appear confident. But it's, unless you drink alcohol or something, you're never going to lose that self-consciousness. If you're a normal person that has normal feelings, it gets easier for sure. Like there was a girl in one of my classes she was like crying during class, but she really wanted to do it. And then like a couple of years later, she's one of the best performers in the school, and she would perform on stage. But I'll tell you a story. When I was kind of lost in LA and I was doing improv, but I didn't really want to know what I wanted to do for a career, because I didn't want to be like a film actor. I just never did. But I was, trying to pay my rent, and I was doing a lot of interesting gigs in the meantime.
LA can be a special experience.
Oh yeah. So I did a lot of audience work. So they would hire me to sit in the audience for game shows and court TV shows.
Were you a clapper?
I was a clapper, and I was a reactor, and I did all the things that I could do that was non-union jurisdiction, because, you know, these were non-union gigs, or there just wasn't a jurisdiction for the audience. So, but it was interesting watching these court shows, because there are some court shows that are legitimate cases, you know, like Judge Judy, those are legitimate court cases. There are also some where they hire actors. They don't hire the big name actors. They hire the straight off the bus in LA, like, I'll take any job actors. And sometimes these actors wouldn't show up. And so they would take an audience member and they would say, do you have any acting experience? No. That's okay. You're about the right age. Come backstage and we'll give you the script, or not the script, but we'll give you the details. And I talked to one that did one. The only thing they give them is like, here's the situation. You are everything that you're telling, you're going to tell us your side of the story, and you're the winner. You're the one that's in the right. So you're not going to lie. You're going to tell us the true things that this, you know, these are like real court cases. They might even lie to them. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. I have no idea what actually happens, but they give them the objective, like, your job is to tell the story and convince the judge that you are in the right, because you are. So they go out there and they will play that action. You know, if you're talking about acting, you say playing the action, or, you know, working on the objective. And that's their only goal. They're not trying to be a character. They're not trying to, you know, be even articulate or anything. They're just trying to convince the judge that they are in the right. And I've seen some like Emmy award winning acting from these like never have before done acting, never before done improv actors that are just pulled out of the audience, because that's all they're doing. So when you're talking about doing narration or doing any kind of acting and stripping the, you know, becoming naked or whatever, if you're just playing the objective, playing whatever that character wants, it's going to be amazing. You know, obviously as narrators, we have another job, is we also have to make the characters sound different. But if you start from a place of this is what the character wants, or this is the character's job, it's so much easier. And that's what you do in improv. And it just gets those muscles to work.
Because that's what I do before I record every book. I record the characters introducing themselves to each other, and each character gets a minute to explain their problem in the book, or their issue, or what they're trying to do. And then I've got a recording of each voice clip that I can use.
That's a good idea.
But I had no idea that was improv as well. You know?
What we're doing right now is improv. We didn't plan what we're going to say, you know, like we improv all day, every day when we're talking to people.
So when you're teaching classes, what do you find students' biggest obstacle is?
I don't know. I think I'm a pretty great teacher. They don't usually have, no, I'm kidding. I have a lot of students that are taking the class so that they can keep their student visas active. So I do have a lot of people who English is not their first language. So that can be a stumbling block.
And they probably didn't know what they were getting into, huh?
You know what? There's always like one guy, and he's always like an older gentleman, and he comes in like with all of his jokes ready. And I really make in the description, like and I've tweaked my description so many times, because, you know, you get those people, oh, I thought this was, because there's like one nightclub or one chain of nightclubs called the Improv. And so people think improv is stand-up. It's completely not. You can do improv in your stand-up, but it's different. It's generally working with a group of people. Standing up, sitting down, lying down is an improv game. But so yeah, there's always the one guy who just wants to come in and do his jokes. But usually those are, you know, I can kind of get them to come over to the other side after a while. I have had some students that were like, I didn't know I would have to do scenes, you know, or it's like, we will play improv games, we will do improv, we will do improvisational acting. Like, I didn't know I had to get up in front of people. Like, I've only had that once, and then I just immediately changed the description. But yeah, as long as I kind of let them know what they're getting into.
Sorry.
Objective of.
So what's the objective? So what's the difference between somebody being good at improv and somebody being bad at improv? What are you trying to achieve at
Well,
the end?
the most important thing is you may have heard of yes and.
Hmm.
And that doesn't literally, and so it, like if somebody gives you a line of dialogue like, Daniela, oh, I saw you at the store yesterday. You know, if you came back to me and said, no, that wasn't me, it's like, oh, okay,
Conversation over.
it's conversation over. But if you say,
Yeah.
yeah, that was me, and I was buying some alcohol for this party I'm having tonight. Yeah, I heard you were having a party actually, and you didn't invite me. You know, you can, then you have a place for it to go. So if everyone
Yeah.
is yes anding each other, you don't necessarily have to say yes and. For me, yes and just means you are accepting what the other person said is truth and you are adding to it. So as long as you're doing that, that's going to keep the scene going. So when you have people that come in with an agenda where they're like, I'm just going to play this one character, I'm going to be, you know, or it's like we bring in our own stuff. We're so used to, unfortunately, being negative in life or being skeptical or just, you know, just the life stuff.
Like the Jim Carrey movie, yeah, The Yes Man. I love
Exactly.
that
Yeah.
movie. Love it.
Yeah.
Not, I mean, he's not even my kind of, you know, it's a lot of slapstick normally, that kind of comedy, and I'm not a fan of
Well, he does.
slapstick.
He has a big range. He's an
Yeah,
actor, you know.
but that movie, the whole premise of it, just
Mm-hmm.
if it, I think everyone's probably heard of it, but he just basically, this guy starts saying yes to every single thing. He's not allowed to say no to anything. And I
Mm-hmm.
love that. And I'd always tell myself, if I've got a decision, you say yes rather than no, because no cuts you off and makes you small immediately. It
Yeah, and
stops
I
all
go through this
cats.
with my students. Like, all after a few weeks, I'll say, you know what, has anyone noticed anything different in their life after
Oh,
doing, you know,
wow.
doing these improv classes? And they're always like, yeah, actually, I find it easy. And for me, if I'm very shy. I used to be even more shy, and you know, it's like, oh, now all I have to do is just, you know, accept what this person is saying to me and add to it. Like, it makes conversations easier, it makes work life easier, it makes job interviews way easier, especially when you tell them that you have improv experience, because they're like, oh yeah, that means you can actually think on the fly, and you know, you have some ability to act when something goes wrong. So
Yeah.
but yeah, just general day-to-day life and work, it really helps in a lot of different areas because of the yes anding.
And your brain, you're most likely you're really remapping your brain, because
Yeah.
what they say, that your neural pathways, you get in grooves. That's what negativity is and bad habits. And if
Mm-hmm.
you're acting something out in improv and you're having to freshly react, you're creating new grooves, new neural pathways. So
Mm-hmm.
if you do it enough, like, I wonder, it'd be interesting to think about the difference in you as a human being now, as opposed to if you had never done improv. And you say you were a shy
Oh man.
person, and you know what I mean? Confidence. I mean, you were
Yeah.
pretty confident already, weren't you, before improv, because you traveled around the
No.
world and
Well, confident. I mean, there are different kinds of confidence. You know, I remember in junior high school, I was shy. I didn't talk to anybody. I was like, people would say, "Oh, she's stuck up because she didn't talk to anybody." And I was just an introvert, but I was also pretty confident in my dancing skills. You know, I had taken dance classes, and so like a group of us did when all the cheerleaders got kicked off the team for various reasons in junior high school. My dance group got invited to perform at a pep assembly, and I just remember my Spanish teacher saying, "Oh my gosh, you never talk." And it wasn't that I was scared to talk in Spanish; I was just scared to talk in general. She's like, "You're so quiet in class, and you know, but you'll dance in front of the whole school. Like, that's amazing." I'm like, these are two totally different things.
yeah.
Um, you know, like I remember celebrities, you know, celebrities a lot of times they'll say, oh yeah, I'm super shy in front of people, but they perform, they do concerts, and like Beyonce, she comes up with a different character so she can do her thing. But yeah, they're different skills. But you know, as far as the talking and the acting, improv definitely takes care of all those muscles for sure.
I think Gina Rogers said that about her Let's Just Dance. I'm blank, sorry, tired. But she said that she puts on a persona when she dances, and that's the only way she can do it. And see, I'm terribly self-conscious. You wouldn't think that having done burlesque, but dancing.
Well, but you know what? We get drawn to the things that we're scared of because we want to get over them.
And but I did it as a clown because I have clown training, so I made it a comedy. I was like the joke, you know. I came on and swept up the floor and then started peeling off the kid. It was a joke, so that was okay. I could never go out there and like I'm taking myself seriously, you know. It's
you're a born comedian though, that's why.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing though. I've never been shy in front of an audience. I can go in front of millions of people. There's nobody in the world that I'm going to be nervous. I'll talk anywhere about anything to anyone. I don't care. But I still, to this day, could not dance. And like, even in like a club or something, if I saw there's no amount of alcohol that would get me to do it.
So let me ask you this, okay, dancing in a club, you're improvising. You're not doing a routine. But doing a show, like if someone were to teach you choreography, are those equal to you? Or are they both
when it comes to physicality, I've tried. I've taken belly dancing lessons, and I mean, the teachers felt sorry for me. I would eventually, in a very stiff, awkward way, memorize the movement.
Yeah.
I definitely do not have the soul of a dancer. I'm telling you that.
Not everyone does.
We've all got our thing. You know, I'm a great clown. We've all got our, you know, physicality. So to me, somebody like you say, oh, you could dance and everything. That's brave. I mean, going on the cruise ships and doing that, that's like a life dream brave. It's so funny how we think of ourselves introvert, extrovert, shy, not shy. And we all have facets. Isn't that amazing how like, you're so much braver than I am in ways. And like
the other thing too is like when you move somewhere where nobody knows you, you can have more confidence. Like doing things in front of, oh my gosh, having friends and family come to my improv shows is terrifying. It is the worst. I don't like it at all. Like I'll invite people because I don't want to appear like the one person who never invites people to the shows. Because you know, these are small theaters that need to make money somehow. But it's terrifying.
So what about
I'd much rather perform in front of thousands of people at a theme park than in front of anyone who knows me.
See, I love that. I love that about you though. But let me ask you, so how did you end up from all those are audience facing, forward facing? How did you end up in narration? What part of your personality does that call to?
My introvertedness for sure. When I'm, you know, I love to just be by myself and work out a thing, you know, like if I'm as a choreographer, I spent half of my day staying in a small room, working out dance moves. As a singer, you know, in college and stuff, I would be in the practice room for hours and hours and hours. I remember like one summer I had, I took summer quarter and I had like piano and I had my singing classes and my voice lessons, and I wasn't working a lot that summer, and so I just spent all day in practice rooms, small little rooms, working on my art, and it was the best summer I ever had. So sure, yeah, if you know, here's a thing where you have to spend hours and hours in a small enclosed space and do art, sign me up.
And how long ago did you start narrating?
I started in 2014 with Learning Ally. And that was when I was living in a house with like 7 girls, a very small house. And I had a roommate in my room, and fortunately she had a day job, but it was a loud house. The stairwell was like echoey, and yeah, it was a nightmare to try to do books there. So as soon as I
obviously loved it because you've stuck with it.
After like 2 or 3 books, I thought, why am I still in LA? I finished my improv training. I did the whole, you know, I went to IO was the school that I ended up at, and I finished my training there, and I thought, I'm just going to move back home where my family is, like if I'm going to do audiobooks. So I loved it, but it was really a challenge with all the noise where I lived. So yeah.
I moved to Seattle from LA. It was a shock. Because when you live in LA, you think Seattle is like lovely, cozy coffee shops with lovely pitter-pattering romantic rain outside. I'm sorry, I didn't take well to it. You would leave the house and it was like waiting for you. I swear to you, I was like paranoid at a certain point. Like the rain would wait for the minute you step the foot out the door. And
I will tell you what,
underneath, it was so heavy.
that was the worst part of moving back. And that was part of the reason I left. Like I left that part of the story out. But yeah, the part of the reason I wanted to leave was because I hate the cold and I hate the rain. But this last year, I have learned that as long as I don't go outside in the winter, I'm much happier. So I'm going to make that, I'm going to take a little bit of time off this summer and not do as many books. And then in the winter, I'm going to just bury myself in work and just not go outside.
Smart. And it's
because
beautiful.
I'm taking my vitamin D tablets, so I'm fine there.
So you teach, you still teach improv, don't you?
We're on hiatus right now. Maybe we'll start back up in the winter. But I'm trying to get a thing going on Clubhouse. So I'm catering to voice actors because a lot of them are in Clubhouse, and I think voice actors can learn a lot from improv. So I started a channel called Voice Actors Doing Improv, or VADI. So if anyone's on Clubhouse, find that club, join me. We're going to do some improv and start with the very easy games.
I'm still kind of, that Clubhouse to me, that neighbor that moves in and you're not too sure about each other yet. Like, they park their big trailer in front of the house and they're kind of like on your lawn and they seem really friendly, but that's how I feel about Clubhouse. We're still sussing each other out. I love John, and I got in a group about women ex-prisoners that had turned to religion and were successful, and then they called me on as a speaker. They're great. I mean, they had some fabulous stories.
Is that your background?
No, I don't know how I got onto it. I just clicked a button. They make you choose if you like to be motivated or business or something. And
oh man, see, I got into it for narration groups, and I've just been doing narration groups, and then also I ended up with a lot of people trying to learn English so that I can learn their accents, and so now I actually have been teaching improv to some of them. I've done some improv for advanced English speakers or people learning English, and that's fun. It's also a bit of a challenge with Clubhouse, the audio, and the fact that the English is not the first language, but it's we'll get there. The technology will get a little better.
Now so I have a question to you that Dave brought this up, and I know, Dave, it wasn't an actual question, but it's an interesting point, and I'd like to run it by Rebecca, because people have been using this to great success, and I've kind of been considering it, but I found myself easily distracted on Discord. Dave says there's nothing as instructive as hearing on Discord and Clubhouse and watching on Discord as narrators perform their craft live in the studio. What do you think about that? Are you a Discord kind of girl? Can you see yourself doing it? Because I'm of two minds. I'm not sure. To me, it was like having a big party with every temptation not to do my work. I know you don't have to pay attention to your friends that are listening, but your friends are there listening. And I love you guys, because the thing is, Avon, I was on Discord for a little while when Avon started, and I did love it. And somebody there said, oh, you can mute it. But the problem is, I don't mute it. Because I think it's like you said about the ADHD and like knowing yourself and taking breaks. I think we kind of get to know ourselves after a few years narrating, and we know all our tricks. So we know that but we are digressing, and I don't want to run out of time because we need to do the live improv. And so we've only got a few minutes left, and I need to ask my standard question. Last words of wisdom for the people that are going to be watching this YouTube video in 60, 70, 80 years. What would you like to leave them with?
Oh man, I'm a Cup of Joe regular. I would think I would know that this question was coming up. Yeah, well, since we're talking about improv, I think everyone, not just actors, but everyone should do some improv, just because it gets you to be able to say yes and to be more accepting. And we didn't really talk about this much, but being able to own your mistakes. When you're in an improv team, your job is to support the other actors, and whatever, because you're saying yes, whatever they said is truth. And you're not going to downplay, you're not going to say, oh, that's the wrong decision. You're just not going to do that. So you're going to accept whatever they give you, and you're going to build on it. So when you get used to that, when you get used to people saying, oh yes, that was brilliant, you're right, yeah, oh yeah, yes, you're right, I'm totally a slob, look at me, I just spilled my spaghetti all over the floor and I'm not going to clean it up. You're teaching yourself to, first of all, be accepting of others, but you're also teaching yourself that others are going to have your back, and to own your own things. Like, yeah, I said a thing and I'm going to stick to it, and I'm going to heighten it and going to make it more. And most of those things are mistakes. I like, some of the funniest improv comes out of making a mistake. And there's actually, some teachers teach that way. And I do one lesson where we're doing an improv scene, and when something weird happens, basically it happens because somebody made a quote unquote mistake, or they did something they weren't intending to do. I'll have the students raise their hand and say, ooh, this is the weird thing. Okay, how can we build on that? How can we make that into a scene? What's the next thing that's going to happen? So when you kind of break it down like that and see where the mechanics are, you realize what's happening. But what's really just happening is you're owning your mistake and you're building on it, and you're saying, yep, I did it. It's going to be that way, and we're going to make a beautiful, funny thing out of it. So yeah,
which is the art of it.
Do that.
Which is the art of it, which is what I say about narrating as opposed to AI. It's the crack in the voice. It's the odd inflection that other people wouldn't have made that makes you love the book and the narrator. Or hate them, one or the other. But but that's art. You either love it or hate it.
Yeah, for sure.
Before we turn off to do the live exercises, could you please tell us again, Laura was asking what the group is called on Clubhouse. They'd love to learn from Rebecca. They'll even check Clubhouse out for it. For this, you're bringing new people to Clubhouse.
Yay!
What was the name of it again?
VADI, Voice Actors Doing Improv. It's a blue background with yellow letters, I think. And or if you see me on a one of the narration rooms, just look on my profile, and I have one coming up Friday, I think. Well, for the future, I don't know if it's going to stay. I think it's on Saturday for now, but that might change.
Okay, fabulous. Okay, guys, we're going to turn the recording off.